we've got the gravity results back, and we've identified sort of 50 plus anomalies associated with specific gravity features. And we're just about to put out an announcement on some of the results of the VTEM as well. So I can't really say a lot about that, other than we've identified a number of anomalies there as well.
Hello, welcome to Assay TV. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Shaun Vokes, who is the CEO of Talisman Mining. Shaun, great to see you today. Talisman Mining, tell us a little bit about the company. You've got two projects there in New South Wales.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Leo. I guess just a little bit of background of Talisman. We listed in way back in November 2005, I think it was. So it's been around a little while as an exploration company in Australia. I guess our purpose is pretty straightforward and simple. You know, it's about generating superior returns for our shareholders through exploration and discovery. I guess our near-term goal is to focus on having a mine in production and potentially one in development in the near term with an exploration pipeline. And you know, on that basis, what we've done is back in 2018, we sort of scoured around. We had some projects in Western Australia, which we divested after they commenced development. And we looked around Australia for, you know, prospective ground that was open and sort of settled on New South Wales, and in particular the Lachlan origin and the sort of Cobar Super Basin region of the Lachlan origin. So we've got essentially 5 projects in New South Wales now, covering about 7,200 square kilometres. We've got our Central Lakeland Project, which is the largest project, about 4,500 square kilometres. Our Babinda Copper Project, our Elvis Porphyry Copper Project, which is just to the southeast, and then our Hillston Project, which is at the southern end of the Cobar Super Basin, and of course our Lucknow Gold Project joint venture, which is just outside of Orange, which is a little town in New South Wales, which is was one of Australia's first commercial gold mines there.
Absolutely.
So
if we drill in a little bit more on the Lakeland project, because I know that's the sort of been the focus recently. You've done some geophysical work there to sort of identify some high priority targets. Tell us a little bit about the work that's been done to date and what your plans are.
Yeah, I guess we took a bit of a breath in. We had some changes as a result of COVID in terms of our team, with, you know, various people sort of going on to do other things, and we put together a new geological team. And I guess my view was always, you know, there must be some commonality amongst all of the existing mines and deposits in New South Wales. And you know, the team went away and worked up, you know, what was the commonality amongst those existing mines. And the thing that shone through was gravity. They all associated with the gravity anomaly, which is usually sort of identified post-discovery. And the other thing was obviously that using electromagnetic surveys has been a good way of uncovering some of these deposits, sulfide deposits below depth in that area. So, you know, we went down that path and said, rather than do it on a small scale, we need a regional scale survey, because we've got a lot of ground to cover, and we wanted to try and shorten the discovery timeline. So we convinced the board that let's do almost 15,500 line kilometre gravity survey. It's flown at a 200 metre spacing, and also almost 6,500 line kilometre VTEM survey, also flown at a 200 metre spacing over different portions depending on what we were looking for. So, you know, that's a big investment in our tenure. It was a $2.2 million exercise. That was finished at the start of this year, and we've just started to get, we've got the gravity results back, and we've identified sort of 50 plus anomalies associated with specific gravity features. And we're just about to put out an announcement on some of the results of the VTEM as well. So can't really say a lot about that other than we've identified a number of anomalies there as well as a result of that data. So, it is, this region is, we know it's structurally complex, and we understand that probably the next discovery is going to come from something that's concealed under cover.
I mean, how do you go about prioritizing these targets? You said you've got sort of maybe 50 potential targets, and then you're sort of narrowing it down with these other, with the electromagnetic survey as well. So how many targets do you think you'll end up sort of, going into deeper?
I would say in excess of 24 for sure. I mean, what we're doing at the moment is obviously looking at all the geological data that we can, both historic and our own, that we've done on, geochemistry and so forth, but trying to create the layers where we can sort of say, based on this anomaly, there's other supporting evidence which suggests that this is a higher priority target than something else. So the team's working through that at the moment. I mean, there is so much data to go through now that, it's a frustrating experience to a degree that, I want things to happen now. But there's only so much people power you've got to throw at these things. So,
as you mentioned, it's sort of undercover a lot of the features in that region. So it takes a patient game, yeah.
It requires, just because we identify a gravity anomaly or a coincident VTEM anomaly, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a walk-up target. So there's other work that needs to be done to understand. You've got to ground truth at first. So the geos go and walk the ground, and then it's, do we need to do any infill geophysics to identify where we should actually focus the drilling, or is there any geochemical data that needs to be done or compiled first to sort of hone in on exactly where that drill target is. So, obviously, although we've got some funding in place that allows us to do a little bit more drilling than your average junior, we don't want to necessarily be flippant with that. It's very focused, and we're trying to do it as efficiently and as systematically as possible.
So there has been a little bit of drilling on the project as well. I think you've got a couple of RC holes you've done and produced some interesting results.
Yeah. Recently, unfortunately, the weather in New South Wales isn't playing very nicely at the moment, and that's sort of our drilling. Our last drilling was sort of late March, early April, and we just haven't been able to get back on the ground. It's just been too wet. So, but that drilling, we had a target at Kaolin Shaft. It was a polymetallic target. It's along the same sort of strike as the Mineral Hill mine. And we flew geophysics over that. We flew a VTEM survey over that. And that came back with a very positive result, which we announced. The holes that we drilled in that came in with some broad polymetallic intersections. So we've got some follow-up drilling planned there. And then there's also up at Babinda, we had some issues with water up there. There's a conceptual target up there that was identified as part of a regional review that we did in 2021, which we haven't been able to get on the ground and drill. It's just been too wet. So, and then we drilled at Murray's as well, some RC drilling at Murray's. That produced some numbers as well. We've gone back and sort of done some reinterpretive work on those results. So, look, there was not as much drilling as I would have liked done, and but we're hoping. The team's been back out on the ground the last few days, and we're hoping to sort of recommence drilling in September.
Absolutely. You mentioned your financing. How's that looking? I mean, how much powder do you have in the store, so to speak?
I mean, I guess the Talisman's a little bit unique in that we have a royalty, an iron ore royalty, over an operating iron ore mine at the moment, and we've got about $9 million in the kitty at the moment, and that royalty. For the 21-22 financial year, that brought in about 6.3 million, and it started production in March 21, at around a 5 million tonne per annum run rate. And they've just got approvals to go up to 13.5 million tonnes per annum. So, you know, look, I'm not going to predict what the iron ore price is going to do, but it's, you know, that nice to have where it could throw off, you know, in between sort of 400,000 plus per month, you know, depending on your view of iron ore price going forward and where the operator of that mine gets to in terms of production. So what we try to do from a funding point of view is match our exploration spend with the royalty. And we use the kitty, if you want of a better term, the business development type expenditure, and also to run the corporate office.
Absolutely. So you mentioned you're hoping to get back out there in September. Will that be a sort of more extensive drilling campaign, do you think?
Yeah, we've got, again, the team's going through and just ground truthing some of the anomalies that the geophysics threw up. We already had some pre-existing targets as well. We'll start off with a small diamond campaign at a target that has some old workings on it. But you know, we're hoping that we can sort of drill through the rest of the year and into the new year, provided the summer is not that wet.
Absolutely. Can we touch on the Lucknow Gold Project? It's a farming agreement you've got there. Tell us a little bit more about that project and how you came to hold it, be involved with that.
Yeah, I guess we were looking for, again, this was back in around the sort of 2018, 2019 period, again, looking for additional projects to supplement what we had in the Cobar Super Basin. And we met with the private company that owns some tenure in that area of New South Wales. And they sort of intimated that you know, we identified Lucknow as an area of interest given the historic mine that was there and especially the grades. I mean, it was, you know, purported to be producing at 100 grams per tonne. And we thought it still remained prospective for sort of moderate tonnage, but very high grade gold. So we entered into a farming agreement with the private company that owns that, and we've now sort of earned our earning, and we've got a 51-49 joint venture with them. Like the difficult thing with Lucknow, I mean, and a lot of the ground in New South Wales is you're dealing with private landowners. So there's a lot of negotiation that has to happen to get access to the ground. And Lucknow, given its position so close to a regional centre, which is Orange, in New South Wales, it just means that there's a lot more negotiation that has to happen with the landowners before they allow you access to get on and do some exploration work. So we did drill a couple of holes and a couple of deep diamond holes. And what that sort of, the interpretation at the moment from that is that the mineralisation's been offset to the northwest. So that meant we had to go back and negotiate with landholders in that sort of area where we thought, and there's probably 8 to 10 landholders that you have to deal with. Some of them are you know, quite happy to have exploration on their property. Some of the properties have been developed to a point where there's large commercial farms, there's vineyards, all very nice. So, you know, it's not that you can't do work, it's just that you've just got to spend more time negotiating with individual landowners. So we're doing some soils and mapping work there at the moment with a view to trying to pinpoint more accurately where that mineralisation might have been offset.
But as you mentioned, I mean, it was, you know, there was about 400,000 ounces mined there at grades of reputedly over 100 grams per tonne. So definitely something worth poking around a bit more. Oh,
for sure. And, you know, they mined it down to a depth where in those days, they just couldn't cope with the water.
Yeah.
So there was obviously water inflows that they couldn't manage.
When did the mine shut down?
Oh, it was in the early 1900s.
Exactly. So go back there with modern techniques, and there's you know, potential there.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, you know, looking forward for the rest of the year, what are the sort of key milestones that investors should be looking out for?
Obviously, there'll be a an announcement coming out about the VTEM, and we've got some results back from the very last prospect that we drilled back in March. So that's coming out. We've also purchased our own auger rig so that we can do some of our own soils and not rely on contractors, because again, rig availability, especially for auger, is a bit of an issue. So there'll be an announcement out about the VTEM interpretation. We've also got upcoming drilling programs. Obviously, we'll do, as I mentioned, there's a small diamond program up at one of the prospects, and then some more RC drilling. And hopefully, provided the weather plays ball, we'll be out for the rest of the year drilling various targets.
Absolutely. Well, it's quite a rare occasion when you meet an exploration company who are not too worried about how they're going to finance everything. So Talisman's quite a unique story there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we appreciate the good fortune that we've got having that royalty, and this is why we want to be very systematic about the work that we do. And we're not going to sort of race out and just pop holes everywhere. It's very considered use of funds, because we realize at some point in time, the royalty will be complete. So, we want to make sure that by that time, well before that time, we've made a substantial discovery.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for joining us today for the update on the company. And we look forward to speaking with you again as things develop.
All right. Thanks very much, Leo.
Thank you very much, Shaun.